I did something back in 1999 that would probably get me arrested today. But back then, it felt like justice. This internet creep thought he could get away with preying on young women. He thought wrong. Here's how it started. Rewind back to the late 90s, the Wild West days of the internet. HTML-coded chat rooms were all the rage. Think of them as the pinnacle of online free speech, completely unmoderated, no personal data logged, no account registrations. You just picked a screen name and dove in. Sounds great, right? Wrong. This anonymity turned these chats into a playground for creeps. Whispers, basically a DM before DMs were a thing, to target girls and young women. And while these chats didn't support images, it was easy enough to exchange email addresses. You can guess what came next. Low-pixel, unsolicited photos. So, we had to police ourselves. We created online communities, separate websites dedicated to specific chat rooms, like our own, The Attic. No registration required, just an endorsement from a member. We had lists of members, warnings about known creeps, and early versions of netiquette. We'd whisper in the chat, flooding a creep's screen with endless whisper messages until their connection died. It worked 95% of the time. The Attic became known as the safest place online. But some creeps were slippery, managing to trick victims into sharing personal info. We were constantly battling to come up with new and creative ways to stop them. That's where my girlfriend, Sarah, came in. I was 20, she was 21. We met through a physical meetup organized by The Attic. People traveled from all over the country to hang out for a weekend. Sarah? She was one of the first members of the community, known for being incredibly tough and creative when dealing with creeps. Everyone joked that she was more evil than the devil. What they didn't know was how true that statement was. And then there was Farmer Bob. He was one of those slippery creeps. He managed to become a member without raising any red flags. His creepiness was low-key, but after a few younger members reported receiving unwanted emails, Sarah and I decided to take action. Sarah pretended to be a naive newbie. It didn't take long to reel him in. We got some basic info about him, even some personal details. He claimed to live in a rural area and that he was a wealthy cattle farmer, hence the name Farmer Bob. We quickly realized he was incredibly stupid, lacking in social skills, basic education, the whole package. He bragged about always wearing wooden shoes and how the females loved it when he got intimate with them while wearing them. Real smooth, Bob. After a bit more back and forth, Sarah got bored. "Screw it," she said one night. "Let's go all in." She pretended to be interested in meeting up, but only if he could provide some cocaine, saying it always made her super horny. To our surprise, he took the bait. He admitted he couldn't afford it, despite bragging about being a wealthy cattle farmer just hours earlier. Then he let slip that his parents would be out of town the coming weekend. He literally forgot he'd claimed to own the farm. What an idiot. Sarah decided to crank things up to 11. She typed, "But Farmer Bob, didn't you know that if you mix 3 parts baking soda with 1 part vanilla sugar, then you would get a rush equal to a cocaine rush, but with a nice aftertaste? It's also way cheaper." We thought it was so over the top that he'd realize she was trolling him. But no. Instead, he said he'd forgotten about that DIY cocaine trick and thanked her for reminding him. I swear, he can't make this stuff up. Sarah convinced him that he had to make a batch before she booked a train ticket. He had to make sure it was of good quality, she said. He promised he'd make a batch right away and try it out that evening. We logged off, laughing our heads off, convinced he'd figure it out within hours. We went to sleep feeling like we had saved some young women from this predator. 2 days later, we got an email. All caps, red flags everywhere. It read, "You made my nose bleed, you MF bitch. I had to visit a clinic because of you." He was furious, accusing her of tricking him. No kidding, Sherlock. But wait, it gets worse. We somehow convinced him that he must have gotten the mix wrong. Sarah made an outlandish claim that she used this DIY nose candy all the time in her side gig, producing and starring in German amateur spanking pornos that she sold to tourists all over Europe. I almost choked on my soda when she said that. And then she said, "We have to sell it. We have to sell that lie to him." And that's exactly what we did. To prove it, we recorded an extremely stupid and obviously fake trailer for our big hit, Spankin' Mein Scheisse. Sarah's younger brother volunteered himself and his friend to star in it. The scene was her bed, her brother pretending to be a random dude, sitting there with his friend laying on his stomach across his lap. Both fully dressed, mind you, with her brother pretending to be Sarah since he had long curly hair. Using a wooden spatula, he simulated spanking him while I stood behind the camera, clapping my wet hands to create a sloppy spanking sound. Intensely, to top it off, Sarah and I shouted German-sounding nonsense. The quality of the video was horrendous, but the low resolution and frame rate actually made it somewhat believable. It was still extremely silly and over the top. It was so fake that a toddler could see through the ruse. If stories like this keep you on the edge of your seat, hit subscribe. I drop a new one every single day. But not to Farmer Bob. He was totally convinced it was the real deal. He begged us to sell him some films. "I have to see more. I have to know if the baking soda made you do that." We agreed, but only if he tried the homemade cocaine again. That was our mistake. We never heard from him again. I'm guessing he finally realized it was all fake. He might have kept creeping in the chat room, but using another name. We never got another report with his email, though. He vanished. I almost wish he hadn't. That brings me to today. Sometimes I wonder if we went too far. Was it right to trick him like that? To humiliate him so publicly? I tell myself it was justified. He was preying on young women, and we stopped him. We protected our community. But then I think about what he could have done. If we had turned him over to the police, would they have believed us? Would anything have even happened to him? Probably not. In those days, what he was doing was just seen as harmless. Boys will be boys, right? But that baking soda, that made him stop. And sometimes I wonder if that was exactly what he needed. A really good scare to set him straight. I never knew how close the line was, but I think we may have crossed it. The worst part? I don't think I would have done anything different. Do you think we went too far, or did he deserve every single snorting, nose-bleeding second of it? Let me know in the comments. Tomorrow, I'm telling you about the time I found out my therapist was secretly recording our sessions and what I did about it.